Hi there everyone, and welcome to the Camping Cartographer live stream. So I see just in to begin here, YouTube is giving me a little bit of an error message here about not receiving enough video. So could you check that my video and audio are both looking fine? Sound is good, I hear. How about the video? Are you receiving the video just fine? People say it's fine. Okay, it might be just YouTube. It says it's complaining that it's not receiving enough video, so that people might experience buffering. But I do have the preview live here as well, and it's not seeing any buffering myself. So just please give me a word if anything like that happens, and we'll address it. But I think it's fine. So Sue is saying she has trouble sending messages on YouTube. I guess that explains the double greeting there. So yeah, let's just get started, and as long as the YouTube gods is with us, then everything will be fine. So let's get to today's topic. Dungeons, or more precisely, dungeon secrets. I know a lot of you people are game masters like me, and one of the important things when you are designing a dungeon map is that you want a map that, of course, for the dungeon master, needs to contain a lot of different secrets, like secrets room, traps. Maybe you want to mark ambush locations by foul monsters, all kind of things like that. Or maybe you just want to hide something a little bit out of the way so it's hard to see. On the other hand, also, you often want your players to be able to view your map. At least I like to have my players view my map. I think it gives them a deeper immersion into the game. And now the good old-fashioned way is just to explain the dungeon and let the players draw the map based on what they hear. But I don't like that too much because, yeah, I think a pretty dungeon map helps with immersion. So I also like to have the map available for the players, or at least I want to have the map available for the players as much as they would reasonably see. So there are of course different ways you can handle this. This highly depends on if you're using some virtual tabletop or not. If you're using a virtual tabletop, then you probably have some ways of handling a lot of things inside that tool. But today I'm going to focus on Camping Cartographer, what you can do in Camping Cartographer, how you can make different maps, and how you can make one map with both a player view and a DM view, so you don't have to kind of draw two maps. So let's just get started and have a little bit of fun, and let's see where we end up. Probably not going to draw a complete dungeon map. Time rarely allows for that. So I'm gonna just start simply by generating a dungeon map. So let's make a new map. I'm just gonna make a very small dungeon. Let's do the John Roberts dungeon. And let's do something like 200 by 160 map units. Sticking to Imperial units for this one, so 200 by 160 feet. And let's just see this map. Dungeon secrets. So a little while ago, or probably a couple of years by now, we did release a version of the random dungeon tool, so I'm just going to use that one. Dungeon menu, random dungeon, and just get myself a nice little dungeon here. So I don't have too many demands really, just getting something automatically. So we go, and we have our perfect little dungeon. Shows up nicely and everything seems to be okay. So where are we going to start? Well, multiple things that can be nice to do in a dungeon. But one thing to remember when you are designing a dungeon like this and want to be able to handle things like secrets and trying to hide away things, that's to both be aware of sheets and layers. Often when we do mapping, we often just think about the sheets because the sheets control ordering and the sheet also controls the effects. And for a lot of people, they just work with the sheets and they kind of forget that the layers exist. But if you're going to make maps with secrets, especially secrets which you can toggle on and off, it's often very advantageous to work with sheets and layers in tandem. And then it's kind of important to remember what each of them do. So just a brief review. The sheets, which you probably used quite a lot, represents, as I said, two things. They represent the drawing order. A sheet entity on a sheet near the bottom will always appear on top of things on a sheet higher up, so you can control the order that way. And in addition to that, you have the effects on the sheets, which controls the effects in the map. So sheets are highly useful. What people don't work too much with often are layers. And what are really layers? Well, layers are just a way to logically group things. Things that belongs to the same layer, it doesn't control any ordering or anything in the map. It just kind of a grouping or categorization of things. So I can add a lot of things to the traps layer, for example, and all I really do is that I'm telling that all of these things are traps. Does not affect any visual appearance in the map in any way. It just categorizes them as traps, and it also gives me the opportunity to toggle them on or off. And also, which can be useful, layers can also be frozen, which means the entity on them won't be selected when you work with them. So it can also sometimes be very helpful to have the grid on a frozen layer, so that you don't accidentally edit or delete the grid while working if you have a grid on top of your map. So we need to use both of these for maximum advantage. So let's just look at a couple of things. We can start. The first thing I like to do is just thinking about how are we presenting the rooms to the players, and can we hide things in plain sight? And the answer is usually yes. And this is something I sometimes like to do with my maps. Personally, when we play role-playing games, I project my maps on a projector screen so the players can see them. And this allows me to also put interesting factors in the map, things they can notice. For example, if they see a couple of skeletons strewn about, they tend to automatically assume, I see a skeleton in your map, that's going to raise up as an undead and try to kill us. Well, yeah, sometimes they do, but not always. But I like skeletons. But when you are drawing a map, you can do things just simply hiding things. For example, let me just put in a trapdoor. Okay, I have a trapdoor. We can zoom a little bit into the map. And I have a nice little trapdoor right there. Ready to go down to something hidden beneath. I don't know what's beneath it, but those shadows on that trapdoor doesn't look right. Shall we start by fixing the shadows? One important thing is, of course, also when you are wanting to kind of hide things in plain sight in the map, don't try to, try to make it appear inconspicuous, that people don't immediately notice them, and wrong effects are a good way of noticing things. This trapdoor now more looks like it's floating above the floor instead of being embedded into the floor. So let's start by examining why that happens. So always use the list tool on the info menu. That gives a lot of details about different elements. So I'm gonna use the list on there, and I can see that it's on the symbols sheet. Well, there you probably have the problem already. The symbol sheet are usually set up with shadows because it's meant to be things that are kind of tall, standing up, casting a shadow. We can always have the discussion if there should be shadows inside a dungeon at all, especially with no lighting. That's a very valid point. I like to use shadows even if technically they don't always make sense, because even if the shadow shouldn't really be there, it actually makes things look more natural, better than just a flat view. So I see in the chat, Wevan suggest a trapdoor on top of a pillar. Yeah, sure. Probably not very well hidden in that case, but yeah. Okay, so let's fix it. We don't want this to levitate. We want it more embedded into the floor. And to do that, I'm just gonna move it to another sheet. I know Ralph is very fond of just using the move to sheet or copy to sheet command, especially when it comes to move to another sheet. I often have a tendency to just use change properties myself instead, but that's just personal preference. So we have this symbols flat sheet. That's probably the right one for the trapdoor. There we go. It's a bit more embedded into the floor, so yeah, I think we can live with that one. If you want, you can always do a little bit of symbols flat as a bit of a glow, and see if we can get a little bit more effect on it. Let's do an night globe maybe. Size is small in a glow. Let's see if that works. Yeah, not too well, but I'm thinking just going to leave that for now. We got rid of that ugly drop shadow, but right now this one is kind of visible. I mean, if I showed my players this map, they're just going to run over, and I run down the trapdoor. Of course, down that trapdoor is some kind of monster. Maybe the trapdoor itself is a monster, some kind of mimic. I think there is a special trapdoor monster which is like a mimic, but I don't remember. So, of course, you can always handle the players. But I'm just gonna do this one simple. I'm gonna pick up some furniture. Have some tables here. Bed. Well, let's just use a table, I think. Round table. It's a bit of a small table. And of course change the symbol size a little bit. Or maybe we can go for a long table, maybe. Remember when you're working with symbols and symbol sizes to also try to keep it a little bit logical symbol wise. It's tempting for me now to just I need a big symbol and just throw a big table on top of it. But now I have a table that's something like these are 5-foot squares, so 7.5 foot wide table. That's quite an enormous table, so that's not natural. But so let's keep it a little bit more, but we can do something like, I mean, we want the players to notice this as well, don't we? So I can put the table right here. And let's just grab a couple of chairs. Do a chair. A chair. A chair. And as a dungeon, they can't all be the same chairs. A couple of stools. Fine, and I'm just going to put the table on top, as these will be on the same, and voila. So this is kind of the first way of actually going to hide something. I've hidden it in plain sight. It's still there. It's still kind of blatantly obvious if you know there is a trapdoor in there. If you don't know there is a trapdoor in there, well, you can easily overlook or ignore it. And I could have moved the table a little bit more over it. Could do more. Sue wants me to put a rug over it. That's also, of course, absolutely possible. We could just move the table out of the way for a little way. So do it. I thought I did manage to not grab that one. Let's try that again. Do it. Table and chairs out of the way. And a rug. Sue says we have a nice rug in this style. I don't actually know if I have a rug in this style. I'll put a pool over it. Yeah, I think so. I can't fulfill your wish for a rug. Of course, I can always grab a rug from another style. That's also something that's always nice to be able to do. Load symbol from somewhere else. When Campaign Cartographer styles are released, they're released with symbols and fills that are designed to match that style, but that doesn't mean you might not have other symbols that might work. So let's see what we have. Symbols, dungeons, and do we have anything which could have nice rugs in them? You can't always go, of course, to symbol set 2A. Don't you think? No rugs there either. Am I just unlucky? Don't I have any nice rugs? Let's do the standard Camping Cartographer 3 Dungeon Designer 3 then. The 3 colors. Should be in furniture, I think. There's the cloth, but white what I want. Oh, we have a look. A nice little rug. Yeah, and this one kind of fits well enough also with the style, as you can see. So of course, again, I wanted to hide it a little bit in plain sight. So maybe do something like that. Now it really depends how much attention do your players pay. Maybe they'll notice it. Of course, they're probably noticing that floating rug over there. Let's do the same with this one again. I want the symbols flat sheet right there. So yeah, that rug actually fit, and we see just the corner of the trapdoor. Actually, there's a little tiny corner of the trapdoor here as well. But yeah, we don't need to. There's many way of hiding it. I mean, this style even have potted plants, so maybe you can just a big potted plant on top of it, just hiding that ring, and maybe the players won't notice. Maybe they'll just think it's some kind of platform to put potted plants on. Lots of options. I'm not gonna go through all the alternatives, obviously. I could, if we're just gonna swap with symbols to hide that one, we can do that all day, but that would be kind of boring. But that's kind of the first way to actually go ahead and hide things. Just do it in plain sight. Be aware of the sheets and the sheet ordering. As I said, the ordering of sheets is quite important, and if you find, for example, that the plant was appearing below the trapdoor, I don't think it will, because I think it's actually on the symbols flat right now, so it would appear correct. Now it's actually on symbols. So a typical example of things going wrong is that symbol sheet is here, and suddenly things appear below instead of above, not as you want. Because again, what's on the later sheets get drawn on top, because Camping Cartographer actually starts by drawing everything that's on the background screen. Sheet is drawn on screen, or not on screen, in memory and prepared for being drawn on screen. Then it draws everything on the outside shadow on top of that. Then it does the outside on top of that. And so on, and so on, and so on, until it gets to the very bottom sheet, which is drawn on top of everything else. This is actually how drawing on a computer works in general. This is nothing specific for Camping Cartographer as well. When a computer is drawing multiple things, it will always be the last thing drawn that will end up on top, because the computer doesn't, on the screen itself, it doesn't have the concept of many layer or depth of layer. You only have one single flat surface, a single flat image, which everything is drawn to, your screen. So what's drawn last will appear on top. That's just basic computer display, actually. Especially when you're talking normal two-dimensional stuff. But even for three-dimensional and rendering and more advanced stuff, everything is going to end up on a flat 2D surface anyway. Okay, so let's actually fix this one. Move the symbols down where it belongs. So we can also just, before I go on, just notice one thing. You notice that the rug and things like that ended up on the symbol sheet instead of the symbols flat sheet. Why was that? Well, if we look at this actual symbols in Symbol Manager, and I go to the options for the rug symbol, we can see that it's forced to the symbols star sheet. What this means is that it will always be placed on a sheet that starts with the word symbols. If the current sheet is not something starting with symbols, it will always go to symbols exactly. But if the current sheet starts with symbols, then it will go to the current sheet. You can actually see here now that if I change the sheet before I place the rug to the symbols flat sheet, and I now can do list on the rug, we can see it already went to symbols flat. So that's another lesson when it comes to knowing your sheets and using your sheets. Make sure to have the appropriate sheet active. As long as symbols flat is active, then symbols will go to symbols flat. That's also worth keeping in mind the other way. If I now place the plant, it will not go to the regular symbol sheet. It will go to the symbols flat sheet because it follows the same placement rules. So that's also very worth being aware of. So, okay, so let's move on to the next step. I want to actually hide things. I don't want to just subtly conceal it, but I want to hide it. So let's just put out something. So what can we hide? Well, one of the things we often find in dungeons are traps. And traps, like this pit, that's a bit large, set normal, or of course it doesn't actually have to be on, we can hide it over here. Big chance of people coming down the stairs and just stepping on that pit, just as we want. So this is a pit trap, but obviously a pit trap shouldn't be visible to the players until after they have fallen into that said pit trap. You could hide it something with like I did, conceal it, but often typical dungeon pit traps are basically invisible until people step on them and fall down to the depths. I don't have a spiked pit. I think that's oversight by Mr. John Roberts, but okay, fine. But I have the pit now. But this pit is visible, and as I said, I don't want to put anything on top of it. So let's again do a list on it. Well, it's on the symbols flat sheet. Okay, that's fine. That's actually very fine. But how can I hide it? Well, again, let's go back to list. We can see currently it's on the traps layer. So Camping Cartographer actually does most of the work for us. The traps layer is ready to go. I can just hide this one. Notice you can never hide the active layer. And since traps is the active layer, I need to just make some other layer active first. I can now hide traps. And we can see the pit goes away. Or I can show traps. And it's now visible. I can even use the command line to do this. And this is especially nice if you want to put it in a macro. Because you have a command called toggle, which means toggle the visibility of a layer. So if I toggle traps, it changes the visibility. Toggle traps, and it's back. So that's a quick way, and I really encourage you to actually learn those keyboard commands, because it's a quick way to do it. But if you don't want to remember them, you can also make a hotspot to click on. I can actually just draw a hotspot right here so I can click on a pit. Let's just make a special, let's make a special layer just for this one pit, so I can hide and show just this one pit. Because with this traps layer, which I just shown, well, I might have multiple pits, but players should probably only see the one they just fell into, right? You don't want them to see all of them. Like this, I have 4 pits, and if I now toggle apps, yeah, they were placed on the current layer, which were now symbols. Let me just fix that first. They should be layer apps. This. Now I can toggle them all. Toggle traps. Of course, as I just said, I didn't really want to actually toggle the traps all the time. I want to do something, maybe be able to toggle just one of them. So let me create a layer just for one pit. So I add a layer, and let's just call it pit 1. That's a layer. Now I can move my pit to the layer pit 1, like this, and I can now do toggle pit 1, toggle pit, oops, and toggle pit 1 to put it on or off. And I can even do a tools, macros, make hotspot. So I'm gonna make a hotspot with the command I just taught you. Toggle pit 1. And when you make this one-liners, you have basically 2 options to make them work right. You can either leave it at single line as this, don't check the multi-line, but then you need to have a semicolon at the end, or you can hit multi-line and hit enter at the end so that you can see it goes down to the next line. Never 2 enters, and do not mix and have both semicolon and enter. That will mess things up. I like to just have this single line like this because it's easier to see that I've done it correctly. No enters, no nothing. Toggle pit 1, okay. And I can now draw it right on top of the pit, like that. And hotspots, right now you can see the hotspot very, very, very visible here. But that's just when you have drawn it. You can immediately hide hotspots, hide hyperlinks. It's no longer visible, but it's still there. I can now click it, and I can 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 do so as much as I want. And if I put each of these pits on its own layer like this, I can make a macro for each pit, and I can easily hide and show them. But of course, these pits might contain more interesting stuff. And now we also comes to the reason why using layers is so nice. Because so far I could have used sheets instead. I don't really want to use sheets because that would leave a long sheet list with pit 1, pit 2, pit 3, pit 4, and so downwards, and I would need to set the same effects on every sheet and make sure that they are in the right order and everything. It's much better to have everything that needs the same effect and the same order on one sheet and use the layers, which I did now, to hide and show things. But you can hide and show sheets as well. The command toggle SHT, toggle sheet, can hide things, symbols, flat, like that. Toggle symbols, flat. Did I make a little mistake there? Sheet. Symbols, flat. There we go. Just a little spelling mistake. So I could have hidden the sheets, but again, it's a long list of sheets and I need to make sure they all have the same effects and all things. That using layers is much better for this purpose. And additionally, if I'm using layers, I can have many entities on the same layer. Of course, I can have many entities on the same sheet as well, but I can have entities from different layers. Oh, sorry, different sheets on one layer. So let's make this pit a little more interesting, because there is something every single pit needs. And you all know what that is. Well, except spikes, of course. But it obviously have some needs here. So let's just make this a real pit. Now we are talking. But now I have, when it comes to sheets, I have the issue that it needs both symbols and symbols flat sheets. Okay, fine. But if I move now this tentacle over to the same layer, which was the pit 1 layer. Now both the tentacle and the pit is on the same layer, so I can just click and I hide both of them. Perfect. Sushi bar, says Vivian. Ah, okay, but who's the sushi? It might just be you if you're visiting this dungeon. I don't think that will be this little friend at least. So that's a simple way of just hiding and showing things like pits, and you can do it with other things as well. For example, there might be monsters in the dungeons. Monsters which are hidden. For example, there might be spiders, and I think there are some nice spiders in Creepy Crypts creatures. There we have them. Cute little guy. Should we put them in a different room? We can't overload that room. Maybe we have an ambush in this room right here. And I can do much the same thing here. Let me just add a new layer, which I'll call Spider Ambush. Maybe there's actually more of them. It can be a big spider and some smaller spiderlings. Snap. So, it's the little ambush. We just take all of them, put them all on my spider ambush layer, and again we can make a hotspot. If you don't want to make the hotspot inside of the map, maybe we can just put an indicator here. So I'm just gonna use a spider outside the map for an indicator. And that should not be on the spider ambush, because if it is, it will be hidden. Let's just put it on, it can be really any layer, but let's just put it on the symbol layer. I'm happy with that. And I can again do macros, make hotspot, and toggle spider ambush, just like this. And I just use him again as a marker. Hide hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are also always hidden when you load a map, so you don't need to actually hide them each time. But now, didn't I? Yeah, I did just said the problem actually. I mentioned earlier you cannot hide the active layer, but spider ambush was the active layer. So the hide command just fails. I'm gonna just change to a different layer. And now it works just fine. But I did a little lot of mistake. It's not always nice with mistakes, because then I can explain things to you. I put the hotspot on the layer, which I just hidden, so the hotspot is no longer available. So I need to manually go in and hide that one. Let's just show hyperlinks for a moment. And let's just that one, and again we just put it on, I can put it on a map over there, it's fine. There we go. Now I have this nice little spider symbol, and of course maybe I shouldn't put it right next to the room. I mean, if the players can see the kind of outside as well, then they would see the spider. So maybe we should just have some command panel. Just show my hyperlinks, and let's just move this little spider, and I can have a little command panel down here. Now I place it right outside the map, so there's probably a screen here. So I'm actually going to just make sure everything here is on the map border sheet above the screen, visible. And now I have this nice little button outside the map where I can just click and have fun to show or hide. And I could, of course, do the same thing with the pit. I could make the command outside the map, just like that. Okay, so that was a little bit talking about sheets, layers, hiding. So let's move a little bit on, and let's just greet the cat. He wants to be on stream. Yeah, somebody has a Jack this rats. Yes. So yeah, Sue wanted some treasure, yeah? Wow. Yeah, it's my master making sure that I'm actually doing things right. And if it got a little bit dark for you guys right now, it's just, yeah, a Jack. So let's move on to the last part, namely a secret room, because all dungeons needs to have secret rooms. I mean, if it doesn't have a secret room, it's not a dungeon, is it? So before I do that, I got a question from Kevin. If I run a project for your players, are you projecting directly from CC3 or from an export? I'm using an export because I'm using a virtual tabletop called Map Tool, which serves as I just use it even if I have all the games in person. I find it more useful to actually use a tool like that. That means, unfortunately, I lose out on some of Campaign Cartographer's features, which is a bit a shame, but I also get another kinds of features because I can set up lines of sight, fog of war, and things like that based on player vision, and have the battle maps there. So it's a trade-off. But what's good with Campaign Cartographer? Okay, now I have deliberately made some buttons to click. They might not always be that useful in that context, but remember, you can export the map in several different maps, and that's kind of my point there as well. You can just you can export one DM map which you have as a dungeon master, and then you can turn off the features and export as a player map. And you can sometimes you can, in the virtual tabletop as well, it's possible to have buttons and layers, and you can export the relevant rooms from Campaign Cartographer and just put it as a layer with a button in-game. So there's a lot of ways of doing this. It depends a lot on how you're playing and what you're doing. I kind of wish I could just do it directly from Campaign Cartographer, again, because I love these features. But okay, let's jump to the last. I want a secret room. And where should we put a secret room? Well, there's a room for a secret room up here. So let's just draw a secret room. So I want a room. Let's make it a polygon room. I like polygons. And Sue wanted some treasure as well, so maybe it's going to put treasure. Sorry to hear about your loss of your cat, Bilharm. I hope you get a new one. It's always sad when you lose your friends like that. So yeah, let's just draw my little room. I can turn on snaps just for simplicity. Let's make it just a weird little room. There we go, a weird little secret room. And as any secret room, you of course need to connect it with a corridor. And remember, when you use the corridor tool in Campaign Cartographer, you have a couple of helper functions. You can see down here, corridor start points. B, connect to wall, or C, connect no break. That means hitting the B or C button on a keyboard to set up if you want it to break the wall it connects to or not. If it breaks the wall, it creates an opening in the wall. If not, it just connects to the spot, but it doesn't make an opening. So I want to make an opening up here in the secret room. So I hit B. You can see now it's trying to place it. You see there's a line going to where it will go on the wall. Corridor like that. You can see it makes a break, but down here, the bottom part is the original dungeon, and I wanted this to be a secret room. So if I just break the wall, well, then the players will see there is a break in the wall. We can't have anything about that. So I'm gonna hit C for connect no break, and do it like that. You can see here there's a nice break up here, but it didn't break the wall down here. So that's a room, but how am I going to hide an entire room from the players? Well, obviously, I'm going to use the same technique as I've been using with a little bit of extra modification. So I'm going to add a room, secret room. Also, I'm going to add a layer for the secret room, I meant to say. And I'm going to just take all the entities. Sure, I'm not taking anything else, do it. And again, by using layers instead of sheets for this, I ensure that I don't need to have multiple setups with the same effects, anything like that. It just works. Okay, so now we have a secret room, which I can toggle the same way. Secret room. Okay. And when it's like this, players have no idea that there's a secret room there. But there is, of course, one problem. When they have discovered that secret room, well, then you don't want this part of the wall to be blocked off. You want to be able to see that it is a hole there. Well, for that, I find the easiest way is to use the color key effect. The color key effect can be used to punch holes in things, including in walls. So let me just draw a little polygon on the right sheet. And the important thing is that if I want to punch a hole in the wall, then the punch out polygon I'm drawing needs to be on the same sheet as the entity I'm punching through. So if I'm gonna punch through the wall, which is on the wall sheet, my entity also needs to be on the wall sheet. So I'm gonna put it. The normal color we use for these knockouts color key is color 6, magenta. Just gonna manually select that one. I'm going to make sure that fill style is solid. If it's a bitmap file, it's not gonna work. Simply, it has to be brush pattern solid. You can see that on the top, solid. And I'm just gonna draw it. But now I'm the kind of guy who likes to have precision. And let's just take a few little facts here. We know that this dungeon is using 5-foot squares. I can turn on my helper grid. You can see the dots. It's a bit difficult to see on some of the wall backgrounds, but you can see these are 5 foot and they are perfectly aligned. These walls are 1 foot thick walls, but the walls are centered on the edge, which means that they are half a foot in each direction. Agreed? So I need actually a snap grid which is half a foot. Well, I can do that. Right click grid, make a new grid, and yeah, I can set the X spacing to 0.5, Y to 0.5, and just one snap division. Snap divisions is the number of subdivisions of this setup. This setup determines how tightly placed those visible dots will be. So if I don't want the dots to be too visible, I could maybe have 1 here and 2 snap divisions will give the same end result. Okay, let's just leave the dots for now. It's fine. And I'm just gonna use this plain regular box tool. So click it. I don't think I set the right sheet first, so just make sure I am on the wall sheet. As I said, I have to be on the same sheet. And I'm just gonna draw this nice little polygon. And since the snap grid was now set like that, it helps me place it exactly. Okay, so now I have a purple box, but what can I do with that purple box? That looks really out of place. I'm just going to hit the walls. I'm gonna add the color key effect. Color key. And you can see this is the knockout color. It matches the one I draw the box in. You can use any color you want, but the idea is generally use something that's not normally used in your map, because this will disappear. You won't see it in the map, and you don't want random things to disappear in your map because the color matches, so use something. I would say something weird, but I didn't mean weird, but something, yeah, I did not use. Color key also should always be the first effect on the sheet, because if it's not, you can maybe see the problem already. You can see that here it has beveled edges. Well, that bevel edge has a slightly different color than the rest of it. So if I leave the color key at the bottom, we can actually do that. You can see I get this weird outline. This is not what I want at all. But I put it on top instead. Apply. Perfect. So walls disappeared, and you can't really see that there was a wall there, because the effect system in Camper Cartographer works with the edges of things. So when I put in this color key, this becomes the new edge of the walls, and you can see it actually has a bevel effect on the end. It doesn't appear just brutally cut off. It appears like it's supposed to be like that. Perfect. And now, if I now hide it again, toggle secret room. Secret room goes away, but wait, there's still a hole in the wall. I don't want a hole in the wall when there's nothing there. And of course, again, the clue here is use the right sheet. Because what happens? I just select it. I know it's hidden behind here, so I just select it. I could have turned off the effects and seen it easier, but you can select things in Camper Cartographer when you can't see them if you know where they are. So I'm just gonna move it again. Guess what? I'm gonna move it to my secret room. Voila! The point of all this is that when the secret room is visible, then the color key polygon is also visible, and it makes a hole in the wall. But when I hide the secret room, I also hide that purple knockout polygon, which means that there is nothing there that knocks out the wall, and the wall is not getting knocked out. So again, this is kind of the perfect example of actually making sure that when things are on the right layers, you can very easily, just by hiding or showing one simple layer like that, you can achieve multiple things. I showed the room, but I also managed to actually hide part of the wall, so I could cut a hole in the wall using that. So again, by grouping things on layers this way, thinking a little bit about the layers you use and how you can actually use them this way, it can help a lot. And you don't have to use the keyboard command like I did in this video. If you don't want to, you can just click in, find the layer, secret room, hide the secret room, it's gone, I'll come back, and hide the secret room. So if you don't want to use keyboard commands or macros or anything like that, that's completely fine. And if you just want to change the setup before you export it for your players and things like that, one-time setup, you can just do it like this. You don't have to use the commands. Does seem that we are getting towards the end here now. So I just want to mention one thing. I did show you now the command toggle. And the command toggle is basically toggling visibility. If it's visible or hidden, or sorry, not hidden, it becomes hidden. If it's hidden, it becomes visible. But this can have some bad effects. Let us say that I have hidden some things and shown some things, and I'm toggling several things at once. I might not always end up at the result I want. So you should be aware that it's also two companion commands. You have the hide command. The hide command always hides it, no matter if it's visible or not. Again, as long as it's not the active layer. As I said, you can't hide the active layer, so make sure of that. But the hide doesn't toggle, it always puts it into hidden. So if I hide it again, it stays hidden. It doesn't come back and forth. And the opposite is just show, which again, make sure to show it, run it again. Oops. Show secret room, and it's still shown. So if you want to force it to be hidden or force it to be shown, it's as easy as that. Another trick in a macro, as I said, if something is the active layer, then you can't hide it. And that might be a bit annoying in a macro to make sure. So what I usually do, I show hyperlinks again, and I edit this hyperlink, and you can edit an existing hyperlink using the numeric edit button. Numeric edit is a bit of misnomer because it edits the details of whatever you choose. So it's kind of context sensitive what you do with it, but I can change it. And if I make this multi-line instead, and that, and I use first the command go layer, and some layer. This command go layer means that you set whatever layer you specify as the active layer, and if that layer does not exist, it will be created so you don't get error messages that this layer doesn't exist. And it is kind of nice to use some layer that you don't use in your map normally that isn't hidden or something, because if you use go layer on an existing layer that is hidden, it also gets shown because active layer cannot be hidden. So just use some random name you want normally you are not using for anything in your map, or maybe something you never going to hide, like the background layer, whatever, and you have a nice macro. Notice again, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm making a multi-line like this on multiple lines, I do not add semicolons at the end. It's not quite as simple as that, but use that as a basic rule, because the idea is that if it sees a semicolon, it treats it at the end of command, and then it sees an enter, which means, oh, it's an empty command, so I'm gonna repeat the previous command. That will be the result if you have an extra semicolon there. So, but now, go layer background, that. So now, even, see, I can just turn it on. Oh, I even spelled it wrong, you can see. Background instead of background. Fine, just a good example. It created it. But now, even if Spider Ambush is the active layer, clicking this will still hide it because it jumps to this background layer, and then you could hide the other layer. So I think that's it. Sorry, that's it. Was there any questions I missed? I don't think so. So I guess we are on time, so I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, remember to like and subscribe. And I'm not quite sure if I can make a session next week. I know Ralph will not be doing next week. I might be, but I'm not going to promise anything right now. Maybe, maybe not. Just keep an eye out. If not, Ralph will be back in 2 weeks, or if not, you'll see me next week. Okay, so thank you all for attending. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice evening.